Tashmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev ki jai Nityal Vishnu Vishnupada Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki jai Nityal Vishnu Vishnupada Ashtarashitashmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai Nityal Vishnu Vishnupada Ashtarashitashmar Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj ki jai Tadiya Shubha Tirubhav Titi ki jai Nityal Vishnu Mahabhagavat Srila sorry Nityal Vishnu Parashita Shri Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nityal Vishnu Parashita Shmar Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nityal Pravishta Mahabhagavat Srila Gosharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nityal Pravishta Srila Satchiranda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nityal Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shar Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Rishi Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Bharata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kuni Muna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Hari Nam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Tadiya Shubha Tirubhav Titi ki jai. Shri Kartik Vrat ki jai. Vrat Palankari Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Shri Prahlāda Shri Bhakti Vigna Vinasankari Shri Nrsimha Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakta Pravar Shri Prahlāda Maharaj ki jai. Shri Hari Nam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitangsha Om Jnanatirmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Vedanta Rayaniti Namane Shri Krishna Lila Katani Sudaksham Audarya Madhurya Gunaishtra Yuktam Varam Varanyam Purusham Mahantam Narayanam Tam Shirasa Namami Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Shri Keshava Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Vedanta Vamaniti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Acharya Singharupine Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Pragyana Keshava Iti Namine Atimartya Charitraya Shritanam Chapaline Jiva Dukhe Sadartaya Shrinama Premadayine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shivarshabhanavi Devi Daitai Kripabdhaye Krishna Sambandhave Jnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhvoyo Jala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute. Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Siddhanta Dhanta Harine. Namo Gaur Kishoraya Shakshadvaya Murtaye Vipralambar Sambhode Padambujayate Namaha. Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachirananda Namine Gaura Shakti Sarupaya Rupanugavarayate. Gauravirbhava Bhumistwang Nirdeshta Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nityananda Namastu Premananda Pradayane Kalo Kalamashanashaya Janava Pataye Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Jayatang Surato Pangor Mama Manda Matergati Matsarva Swapadam Bhujo Radha Madana Mohana. Devyad Vrindarani Durmada Śrīmad Ratnagara Singhasanasto Śrīmad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prishtalavi Sevamano Smarami Shriman Rasarasarambhi Vangshivata Tatastitaha Karshan Venu Swaner Gopir Gopinata Shriyastuna Angashama Lima Chata Viravito Mandi Kritendi Varam Jadyam Jagurorochisham Vidhadatam Patam Varasya Shriya Vrindaranya Vilasinam Hridilasar Tamabhiramodaram Radhaskanda Niveshito Cholabhujam Dhyayema Damodaram Vrindayai Tulsidevai Priyayai Keshavasya Krishna Bhakti Pada Devi Satyai Namo Namaha. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Davanala sama sangsara dahani Dagda jiva kulayu dharakarani Karuna varida kripa varidani vandi Guna sindhu guru charana kamala Nritya gita va Shri Hari Kirtane Rahe nama gana mahamata mane Romanchakam pashruhoya gora preme Vandishe guru charana kamala Sadarata jini vigraha sevane Shingaradi ar mandira marjane kare nani jutta Anugata jane vandishe guru charana kamala Chushalaya Peya Rasamoy Prasadana Krishna Rati Sadhu Hoy Bhakta Ashwadani Nijatriptaroy Vandishe Guru Charana Kamala Shri Radha Madhava Namarupa Guni Ananta Madhurila Ashwadani Lubda Chitta Jini Hana Pratikshane Vandishe Gurur Sharana Kamala Vraja Juvadanda Rati Sambardane Jukti Kore Sakhi Gane Vrindavane Ati Dakshata He Priyatama Gane Vandishe Gurur Charana Kamala Sarva Shastre Gai Shri Harir Swarupa Bhakta Gana Bhaveshe Anurupa Kintu Jini Prabhu Priyatama Rupa Vandishe Gurur Charana Kamala Jahara Prasade Krishna Kripa Pare Jara Prasade Anyagati Nai Trisandhya Kiti Rastava Dhyane Vai Guru Charana Kamala Guru Devastakayati Jatna Kori Brahma Muhurte Pore Ucha Kori Vrindavana Nath Shakshat Shri Hari Seva Paishe Vastu Siddhikale Vandishe Guru Charana Kamala Vandishe Guru Charana Kamala Gurudeva 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 Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva 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 Jaya Gurudeva Krishna hoite chatur mukha hoy Krishna seva mukha Brahma hoite Naradera mati Narada hoite Madhva kohi Vyasa dasa Puna pragya parmana bhagati Hri Hari Madhava Vamse Akshavya Parama Hamse Shishya Boli Angikara Kore Akshavya Shishya Jaya Tirthaname Parichaya Tardas Jnana Sindhu Tore Taha hoite Daya Nidhi Tardas Vidya Nidhi Rajendra Hoilo Taha Tahara Kinkara Jaya Dharma Name Parichaya Parampara Jano Bhalo Mate Jaya Dharma Dase Khyati Shri Purushottama Jati Tahoite Brahmanya Tirtha Suri Vyasa Tirtha Tara Dasa Mipati Vyasa Dasa Taha hoite Maravendra Puri Maravendra Puri Vara Shishya Vara Shri Ishvara Nityananda Shri Advaita Vivo Ishvara Puri Ketanya Korilen Shri Chaitanya Jagar Guru Gora Mahaprabhu Mahaprabhu Shri Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya Rupanuga Jane Rajivana Vishambara Priyankara Shri Sarupa Damodara Shri Gosami Rupa Sanatana Rupa Priya Mahajan Jiva Raghunatha Tar Priya Kavi Krishna Dasa Krishna Dasa Priya Vara Tama Seva Vara Jat Para Vishanatha Asha Vishanatha Bhakta Sat Vishanatha Bhakta Sat Baladeva Jagannatha Tar Priya Shri Bhakti Vinoda Mahabhagavata Vara Shri Gaura Kishora Vara Hari Bhajane Te Jara Moda শিবর্ষবনা বিভরা সদা শিব শিব কর তাহার দায়িত্ব দাস নাম প্রভু পার অন্তরঙ্গ শ্রী স্বরূপ রূপানুগ শ্রী কেশব ভক্তি প্রজ্ঞান করিয়া বেদান্ত বেদমায় বার তমহন্ত গৌরবাণী প্রচারাচার্ধাম প্রচারিল গৌরাণী ভক্তি বেদান্ত স্বামী পুরাইল প্রভুপাদের কাম কেশব প্রিয় মহাজান বামন নারায়ণ গৌরবাণী তাদের প্রাণধান এসব হরি জান গৌরাঙ্গের নিজ জান তাদের উচ্ছিষ্টে মোর কাম গুরু পরম্পরা গুরু পরম্পরা পরম্পরা গুরু পরম্পরা গুরু পরম্পরা গুরু পরম্পরা পরম্পরা গুরু পরম্পরা বৃন্দাবন বাসী যত বৈষ্ণবের গান প্রথমে বন্দনা করি সভার চরণ ছলবাসী যত মহাপ্রভুর গান ভূমিতে পড়িয়া বাঁধন সবার চরণ নবদ্বীপ বাসী যত মহাপ্রভুর ভক্ত সবার চরণ বন্ধ হইয়া অনুরক্ত মহাপ্রভুর ভক্ত যত গৌর দেশ স্থিতি সবার চরণ বন্ধ করিয়া প্রণাতি যে দেশে বসে গৌরাঙ্গের গান ঊর্ধ্ব বাহু করি বন্ধ সবার চরণ হইয়াছেন হইবেন প্রভুর যত দাস সবার চরণ বন্ধ দান্তে করি ঘাস বামন্ত তরিতে শক্তি ধরে জানে জানে এ বেদ পুরাণে গুণ গায় যে বাসুনে মহাপ্রভুর গান সব পতিত পাবন তাই লোভে মুই পাপি লইনু শরণ বন্দনা করিতে মুই কত শক্তি ধরি তম বুদ্ধি দোষে মুই দম্ভ মাত্র করি তথাপি মুখের ভাগ্য মনের উল্লাস দোষ স্বামী মোহতামে করণে যদাস সর্ববংশ সিদ্ধি হয় জমা বন্ধ ছুটে জগতে দুর্লভ হয় প্রেম ধন লুটে মনের বাসনা পূর্ণ আছিরাতে হয় দেবকী নন্দন দাস এলো বেকয় জয় বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর জয় বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর জয় বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর জয় বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর জয় বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর শ্রী কৃষ্ণ চৈতন্য প্রভু নিত্যানন্দ শ্রী অদ্বৈত গদাধর শিবসারি গৌর ভক্তবৃন্দ শ্রী কৃষ্ণ চৈতন্য প্রভু জীবে দয়া করি সপশরসিয়া ধাম সহায়বতারি অত্যন্ত দুর্লভ প্রেম করিবারে দান শিখায় শরণাগতি ভক্তের প্রাণ ধন্যয়াত্মনিবেদন গোপ্তৃতে বরান অবশ্য রক্ষিবে কৃষ্ণ विश्वास पालाना भक्ति अनुकूल मात्र कार्य राशिकारा bhakti pratikula bhava varjanangikara sharanga sharanagati hoibe jahara tahar tahara prarthana shune Śrīnanda kumara arupa sanatana pare dante trena bhakti nora pare pada dhore kandiya bole amitoya dhama শিখায় শরণাগতি করো হে উত্তম জয় সপশর জয় কর হরি সপশর জয় কর হরি জয় সপশর জয় কর হরি সপশর জয় কর হরি জয় রূপ সনাতন Rupa Sanatan, Jaya Rupa Sanatan. Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande, Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande, Maya Manasa Madhukara Marpaya Nijapada Pankajama Karande. Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande, Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande, Yajapi Samadhishu Vidirapi Pashati Natavanaka Gramarichin Idamichami Nishamatavachuta Darapi Kriparbhuta Viche Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande, Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande, Bhakti Ruddhanchati Yadi Madhavanadvai Mamatila Matri Parameshwarata Darapita Bhatika Durghata Ghatana Vidatri Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande, Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande, Ayama Vilodata Yada Sanatana Kalitar Bhutara Savaram Nivasatu Nityami Hamrita Nindini Vindan Madhuri Masara Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande, Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande, Jaya Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Jaya Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Damo Dararate Vardhana Veshe Hari Nishkuta Davipineshe Vrishabhanudade Navashashile Kelalita Saki Guna Ramita Vishake Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Karuna Guru Mai Karuna Bharite Sanaka Sanatana varnita charite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Jaya Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Suvaru Vaktramandalam Sukarnaratna Kundalam Suchachitanga Chandanam Namami Nandanandanam Sudirga Netra Pankajam Shikishikanda Murtha Jamananga Koti Mohanam Namami Nandanandanam Sunasikagram Sachandadanta Panktikam Navam Pudanga Chikanam Namami Nandanandanam Karena Venuranjitam Kati Karendra Ganjitam Tukulapita Shobhanam Namami Nandanandanam Tribanga Deha Sundaram Nakuti Sudakaram Amulya Ratna Bhushanam Namami Nandanandanam Sugandhayanga Saurabam Uraviraji Kostubam Spurvachi Vatsalanchanam Namami Nandanandanam Vrindavana Sunagaram Vilasanogavasasam Surendra Karvamochanam Namami Nandanandanam Prajangana Sunayakam Sada Sukha Pradayakam Jaganmana Pralobhanam Namami Nandanandanam Shyandanandanashtakam Paterya Shadayandita Taret Bhavaktim Dustaram Labetaram Viyuham Namami Nandanam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Munindra Vrindavandite Munindra Vrindavandite Triloka Shoka Harini Prasanna Bhakra Pankaje Nikunja Bhovilasini Rajendra Bhanu Nandini Rajendra Sona Sangate Kada Karisha Sihama Vipakataksha Vajanam Ashoka Vriksha Vallari Vitana Mandapasite Prabhala Vala Pallava Prabharunam Griko Male Parabhayaspuratare Prabhuta Sampadalaye Kada Karisha Sihama Vipakataksha Bhaj Anangaranga Mangala Prasanga Pangura Brubam Savibhramaksha Sambhrama Triganta Panapatana Nirantaram Vashikrita Pratiti Nandanandane Kada Karisha Sihama Vipakataksha Bhajanam Tarit Suvarna Champaka Pradipta Gaura Vigrahe Mukha Prabha Parasta Koti Sharadendu Mandale Vichitra Chitra Sanchara Chakora Shavalochane Kada Karisha Sihama Vipakataksha Bhajanam Madonna Dati Ovane Pramora Mana Mandite Priyanuraga Ranjite Kala Vilasa Pandite Anandanya Kundaraja Kama Keli Kovide Kada Karisha Sihama Vipakataksha Bhajanam Ashesha Hava Bhavadira Hirahara Bhushite Prabhuta Shata Kumbha Kumbha Kumbhi Kumbhi sustani prashastamantah sachurna purnasokya sagare kada karishasi hama vipakataksha bhajanam mrinala valla vallari taranga ranga dolate latakralasya lola nila lochana valokane lala lola milan manogyamu gramohanashite kada karishasi hama vipakataksha bhajanam suvarnamala Kanchita Trikakambu Kantage Trisutra Mangali Guna Triratna Dipti Dediti Salola Nila Kuntala Prasuna Kuchagumpite Kada Karishasi Hama Vipakataksha Bhajanam Nitamba Bimbalamba Mana Pushpame Kalagune Prashastharatna Kinkini Kalapa Madhyamanjule Karendra Shundadandika Varo Asobhagoruke Kada Parishasi Hama Vipakataksha Bhajanam Aneka Mantra Naramanjuno Purara Vaskala Samaja Raja Hamsa Vangsha Nikvanati Gorave Vilola Hema Vallari Vidam Vicharu Chankme Kada Karishasi Hamam Vipakataksha Bhajanam Ananta Koti Vishnu Lokanamra Parmajarchite Imadija Pulo Maja Virincha Javara Prade Apara Siddhire Dideta Satpadanguli Nake Kada Karishasi Hama Vipakataksha Bhajanam Maheshwari Kiyeshwari Sareshwari Sureshwari Tivera Bharatishwari Brahmana Shashaneshwari Rameshwari Kshameshwari Pramoratnaneshwari Rajeshwari Rajadipe Shiradike Namostute Iti Mamarbutam Stavam Nishamya Bhanunandini Karotu Santatam Jana Kripa Karabhajana Bhaveta Daiva Sanchita Tirupa Karma Nashanam Bhaveta Davrajendra Sunu Mandala Praveshana Kada Karishasi Hama Vipakataksha Bhajana Kada Karishasi Hama Vipakataksha Bhajana Anamami Shvaram Sachidananda Rupam Lasakundala Gokule Bhaja Manam Yashoda Viyo Lokha Ladhavamana Paramrishtam Atyam Tatodruta Topyanama Nishwaram Sachidananda Rupam Lasakundala Gokule Bhajamanam Rudantamuhurnetra Yugmam Vijantam Karam Pujayugnena Satamka Netra Mohashasa Kampa Tirekanka Kanta Sita Graivadamo Dharam Bhakti Vadam Nama Vishwaram Sachidananda Rupam Alasakundalam Gokule Braja Mananiti Grikiswali Labhirananda Guru घोषं निमाजन्तं आख्यापयन्तं तदीयेषितागेषु भक्तिर्जिता पुनः प्रेमतस्तं शतवृत्ति वन्दे वरं देव मोक्षं न मोक्षवदिं अनाचान्यं वृणेहं वारिषत् अपिह इदन्ते वपूर्णतः गोपाल बालं सदा मे मनस्य विलासं किमान्यत् अनममीश्वरं सच्चिदानन्दरूपं रसकुन्दलं गोकुले भ्राजमानं इदं ते मुखं भुजं व्यक्तनीलं प्रीतं कुण्डलक्ष्मीधरकर्षगोप्य मोहुशुम्बितं बिम्बरक्तधरान् मे मनस्य विहस्तमलमक्षलाभं नामदेवदाम तरानन्त विष्णु प्रसीद प्रभो दुःखजलतिमानं विपष्टि दृश्यति दीनवतानुगृहानिश मम गमे दक्षिणेश नमामि शरणं सच्चिदानन्दरूपं रसकुण्डलं गोकुले भ्राजमानं कुबेरात्मजो पदमुदयभयात् तयमुचितो भक्तिभाजो कृतो च तथा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वकमे प्रयाच नमो शीघ्रहो मे स्थितामोदरेह नमस्तेस्तु धाम्ने स्फुरदीप्तिधाम्ने तदीयतरारत विश्वासधाम्ने नमो राधिकाय त्वदीय प्रियाय नमो राधिकाय त्वदीय प्रियाय नमो अनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यं नमो राधिकाय त्वदीय प्रियाय नमो राधिकाय त्वदीय प्रियाय नमो अनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यं नमो अनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यं राधा दामोदर राधा दामोदर दामोदर राधा दामोदर जय राधा दामोदर राधा दामोदर राधे हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Today, for the disappearance day of Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, we'll sing Jaya Nilo Premadhana. One second, let me just. Jaya Nilo Premadhana Karuna Pracho Jaya Nilo prem dhana karuna prachur he no prabhu kotha gela acharya thakur he no prabhu kotha gela acharya thakur ahamo Swarupa kaha sanatan kaha dasa raghunata patita pavan kaha mo bhatta yuga kaha kavira eka kale kota gela purana raj pashane kutivo mata anale poshivo Oranga gunerane kotage pavo Goranga gunerane de kotage pavo Se sava sangir sangi Je koilo vilas Se sava sangir sangi Je koilo vilas Se sangana paya kande nara tamadasa Se sangana paya kande narottama das jayanila prem dhana karuna prachur he no prabhu kotha gela acharya thakur Heno Prabhu kotha gela Srila Pramod Puri Goswami Thakur Heno Prabhu kotha gela Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Thakur Jaya Jaya Sapashara Srila Prabhupada Sapashara Srila Prabhupada Jaya Bhakti Pramod Srila Puri Goswami Bhakti Srila Puri Goswami Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Jai Shri Gurudev Jai Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari ki Jai Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki jai, Shri Radha Damodar Ju ki jai, Jai Srila Gurudev ki jai, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Srila Param Gurudev ki jai, Jai Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Gosai Maharaj ki jai, Tadiya Shubha Thirubhav Titi ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sapashad Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai, Shri Shad Goswami Prabhu ki jai, Shri Panchatattva ki jai, Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai, Shri Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Kartik Vrat ki jai, Vrat Palankari Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, और जय श्री शिव भानुनंदिनी श्रीमती राधानी की जय, श्री भक्ति विघ्न विनाशंकरी श्री नृसिंह भगवान की जय, भक्त प्रवार श्री प्रहलाद महाराज की जय, श्री ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. Dandavat pranams, everybody. Rup Manjari. His most frequent prescription was to read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Yes, and Rup Manjari also made the point of his emphasis on Nrsingadev that he used to give. I think in all the different Gaudiya mats, I've never seen any Nrsingadev vigrahas that I can think of than in Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj's mat. And I know he gave the Nrsinga mantra to many. I'm not sure if he gave it to all of his disciples, probably not, but I think many people received the Nrsinga mantra from him. I don't know, Rup Manjari, you have to let me know about that. But yeah, so unfortunately, I'm not sure if you saw, I posted on Facebook just the other day, I found out that I have to leave the country all of a sudden. And so I have a ticket now on the 24th November, but before that time, I have so many things I need to do in Vrindavan. So today is going to be such a busy day. I'm not going to get a chance to read about Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, unfortunately, at least live on Facebook. I'll probably read something quickly myself, but I'll see if I can find what I read something last year. Maybe I can just share that. And I was thinking maybe to just read about Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj and Bhagavatam, but then we would be missing. I wanted to read extra today, actually. I wanted to finish the 7th chapter, which is going to be 7,000 words. So we're going to go a bit over time today. But if we do that, then tomorrow on Purnima, Nrsingadev can appear. I thought that would be really nice if Nrsingadev appears on the last day of Kartik on the Purnima day. And Rup Manjari made the point that she thinks her Guru Maharaj should be really happy with that if we were able to honor Nrsingadev in that way also. So yeah, just we can do Mangalacharya now. Yeah, pray to Srila Bhakti Puri Goswami Maharaj that we can one day understand one drop of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that he's always prescribed. Oh, sorry. Okay. I can do his Mangalacharya verse when we do, like we can sing his pranam mantra, I mean, when we do Mangalacharya right now. It is Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Gora Prashtaya Bhutale Śrīmad Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Iti Namane, if I remember correctly. So I'll do that after Srila Prabhupada. Or before Srila Prabhupada. Whatever. Let's do after. Om Jnanatirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. So just word Krishna with Gora. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Gora Prishtaya Bhutale Shri Śrīmad-Bhakti Pramod Puri Iti Namine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha Kuruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha Yang Pravrajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahakatara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bhinedu Sarvabhuta Hridayang Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskrityang Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Shrinvatang Svakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantasto Hyabhadrani Vidhunoti Suhrit Satam Nashta Prayeshvavadreshu Nityang Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavaivasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvang Nayamang Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshai Kshiptashtaka Ditaranga Madhe Kripa Maitam Sharanam Prapanna De Namaste Charanaravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Ito Nrishingo Parato Nrishingo Yato Yamitato Nrishingo Bahir Nrishingo Hridaye Nrishingo Narasimham Adim Sharanam Prapade. So what are we reading from? Oh, Manjari, I was just talking about you anyways. Okay, so we're reading from 37 to 55. Okay. So I'm going to do a super quick recap today because we have a lot to read. We're reading 1,000 extra words today. So the events leading to Kayadu's stay at Narad Muni's ashram. This is Prahlāda telling all his friends how he is able to hear from Narad Muni. So when Hiranyakashipu was doing austerities, the demigods attacked the demons and arrested Kayadu. Narad Muni stopped the demigods and said that the child in Kayadu's womb would be a great devotee. Merciful Narad brought Kayadu to his ashram and spoke transcendental to the mother and to the child in her womb. So then Prahlāda Maharaj goes on to tell the instructions that he heard from Narad Muni, right? He tells about the nature of the spirit soul and destroying the polluted material intelligence by Krishna consciousness, the activities and results of bhakti, the best of all paths, and then he goes into the advanced stages of bhakti. And that's where we left off. Let's read from 29 to 38. From here. Let's see. Well, let's start from 28. Destroy this material intelligence by Krishna consciousness. This Krishna consciousness, which can burn the seed or fruit of activities, stop the flow of the intelligence in three states, Goodness, passion, ignorance, right? I don't know. No, oh no, it was at Shushukti, that one. Anyways, whatever. And dissipate the ignorance. Link to this next section. Having described the nature of the spirit soul and its entanglement in material existence due to the gross and subtle bodies, Prahlāda will now describe in detail the process of coming out of this entanglement, that is, devotional service unto the Supreme Lord Krishna. Prahlāda's instructions on bhakti. Bhakti is the best of all paths recommended for disentanglement from matter. It is directly spoken by the Supreme Lord and is the easiest way of developing love of God. Various activities of bhakti. Oh, and this is a very important verse. Okay. Guru Shushushaya Bhaktya, serving a bona fide guru with faith and devotion. Sarva Labdha Parnena Cha, offer all one's possessions to Guru or Krishna. Sangena Sarubhaktanam, associate with saintly persons and devotees. Ishvara Radhanena Cha, and worship the Supreme Lord. Shraddhaya Tat Katayam Cha, hearing the glories of the Lord with faith. Kirtanar Guna Karmanam, glorify the Lord's divine qualities and activities. Tatpadam Buruho Dhyanat, always meditating on the Lord's lotus feet. Darlingek Sharhana Divi, worship the Lord's deity according to the injunctions of the Shastra and Guru. Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu Bhagavan Asta Ishvara. Remember the Lord as Paramatma situated in the core of every living entity's heart. Bhutani Manasa Kamai Sadhumanayat, and respect all living entities according to their position or manifestation. By performing the above activities of bhakti, one can attain the following results. So here first is the secondary result, is that one can cut down the influence of lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and jealousy. And the primary result is that one attains the platform of Rati, or loving service to Vasudeva. The next verse describes the symptoms of Rati. So this is what happens when somebody attains Rati, bhav. Upon hearing about the incomparable qualities and pastimes of the Lord, the devotee becomes choked up, his hairs stand on end, his voice falters, his eyes shed tears, and he sings, shouts, and dances. As if haunted by a ghost, he laughs and cries. He meditates, contemplates, offers respects to all, breathes heavily, gives up shame, and shouts like a madman, Hare Krishna, O Narayan, O Master of the Universe, attaining particular bhav. By constantly thinking of the Lord, the devotee is freed from all material bondage. The seeds of his material desires are burnt to ashes. By such bhakti, by such rag bhakti, one achieves the shelter of the Lord and directly contacts him. Direct contact with the Lord by bhakti destroys the cycle of samsara, repeated birth and death, for the embodied souls. Therefore, worship the Lord in your hearts. And so we're starting with this verse 37 today. Anyways, I'm just going to read this. Worshipping the Lord is easy. He is in everyone's heart, and he is the friend of all jivas. What then is the need for unnecessary endeavor for sense gratification? And having emphasized the glory of performing devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, Prahlāda will now describe the worthlessness of material pursuits that act as obstacles in bhakti. So we're going to read all that's now. 37. Let's go there. Oh man, looks like my internet connection isn't working very well. I wonder if I should move over to my phone connection. Yeah, it says I'm getting 0 out of 10. Can anybody hear me right now? Sometimes this doesn't always tell the truth though. Anyways, now it's 10 out of 10. Anyways, if the internet gets really bad, I can move over to my mobile hotspot. Okay, everything sounds fine. Cool. This is chapter 7, verse 37. Adhokshajalabham, Adhokshajalabham iha shubhat, Adhokshajalabham iha shubhatmana, Sharirina sangsriti chakra shatanam, Tad brahma nirvana sukham vidur buddhas, Tato bhajadvam hridaye hridishvaram. The real problem of life is the repetition of birth and death, which is like a wheel rolling repeatedly up and down. This wheel, however, completely stops when one is in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is Prahlāda speaking. In other words, by the transcendental bliss realized from constant devotional service, one is completely liberated from material existence. All learned men know this. Therefore, my dear friends, O sons of the Asuras, immediately begin meditating upon and worshipping the Supersoul within everyone's heart. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Oops, let me make this full screen. Generally, it is understood that by merging into the existence of Brahman, the personal feature of the Absolute Truth, one becomes completely happy. The words Brahma Nirvana refer to connecting with this Absolute Truth who is realized in three features: Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti Shabdate. One feels Brahma Sukha, spiritual happiness, by merging into the impersonal Brahman, because the Brahma Jyoti is the effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagaranda Koti. Yasya Prabha, the impersonal Brahman, consists of the rays of Krishna's transcendental body. Therefore, whatever transcendental bliss one feels from merging in Brahman is due to contact with Krishna. Contact with Krishna is perfect Brahma Sukha. When the mind is in touch with the impersonal Brahman, one becomes satisfied, but one must advance further to render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for one's remaining merged in the Brahman effulgence is not always assured. As it is said, Aruhya krichrena param padam tata, patantado nadrita yushmarangraya. One may merge, that's from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 10.2.32. One may merge in the Brahman feature of the Absolute Truth, but there is a chance that one may fall because of not being acquainted with Adhokshaj or Vasudev. Of course, such Brahma Sukha undoubtedly eliminates material happiness. But when one advances through impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead in relationship with Him, as a servant, friend, parent, or conjugal lover, one's happiness becomes all-pervading. Then one automatically feels transcendental bliss, just as one becomes happy seeing the shining of the moon. One acquires natural happiness upon seeing the moon, but when one can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one's transcendental happiness increases hundreds and thousands of times. As soon as one is very intimately connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one surely becomes free from all material contamination. Ya nirvrittatis tanu bhrittam. This cessation of all material happiness is called nirvritti, or nirvana. Srila Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.138, Brahmanando bhavedesha chet parardhra guni krita naiti bhakti sukham bhode paramanu tulam api. If Brahmananda, the bliss of merging in the Brahman effulgence, were multiplied 100 trillion, it would still not equal even an atomic fraction of the ocean of transcendental bliss felt in devotional service. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mar bhaktim labhate param. One who is transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward all living entities. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto the Lord. Bhagavad-Gita 18.54. If one advances further from the Brahma Nirvana platform, one enters the stage of devotional service. Mar bhaktim labhate param. The word adhokshajalambham refers to keeping the mind always engaged in the Absolute Truth, who is beyond the mind and material speculation. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayo. This is the result of deity worship. By constantly engaging in the service of the Lord and thinking of his lotus feet, one is automatically freed from all material contamination. Thus, the word Brahma Nirvana Sukham indicates that when one is in touch with the absolute truth, material sense gratification is completely nullified. Koti prayaso sura balaka harer upasane sve hridi chidravatsata svasyatmana sakyur ashesha dehinam samanyata kim vishayo papadhanai. O my friends, sons of the Asuras, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His Super Soul feature always exists within the cores of the hearts of all living entities. He is the well-wisher and friend of all living entities, and there is no difficulty in worshipping the Lord. Why then should people not engage in His devotional service? Why are they so addicted to unnecessarily producing artificial paraphernalia for sense gratification? I really like this verse. Purport. Because the personality of Godhead is supreme, no one is equal to him, and no one is greater than him. Nonetheless, if one is a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is easily obtainable. The Lord is compared to the sky because the sky is vast, yet within the reach of all, not only of human beings, but even of the animals. The Supreme Lord and His Paramatma feature exists as the best well-wisher and friend. As confirmed in the Vedas, Sayujo Sakayo. The Lord and His Super Soul always stays in the heart along with the living entity. The Lord is so friendly to the living entity that He remains within the heart so that one can always contact Him without difficulty. One can do this simply by devotional service, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam. As soon as one hears of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna Kirtan, as soon as one hears Krishna Kirtan, one immediately comes in touch with the Lord. A devotee immediately comes in touch with the Lord by any or all of the items of devotional service. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. Therefore, there is no difficulty in coming in contact with the Supreme Lord, Koti Prayasa. On the other hand, going to hell requires great endeavor. If one wants to go to hell by illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication, he must acquire so many things. For illicit sex, he must arrange for brothels. For meat eating, he must arrange for many slaughterhouses. For gambling, he must arrange for casinos and hotels. And for intoxication, he must open up many breweries. Clearly, therefore, if one wants to go to hell, he must endeavor very much. But if he wants to return home back to Godhead, there is no difficult endeavor. To go back to Godhead, one may live alone anywhere, in any condition, or simply sit down, meditate upon the Super Soul, and chant and hear about the Lord. There is no difficulty in approaching the Lord. Adanta gobhir vishitam tamisram. Because of inability to control the senses, one must go through great endeavor to go to hell. But if one is sensible, he can very easily obtain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because the Lord is always with him. By the simple method of Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, the Lord is satisfied. Indeed, the Lord says, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yo Me Bhakta Prayachati Taraham Upahritam Ashnami Prayatatmana. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. Bhagavad-Gita 9:26. One can meditate upon the Lord anywhere and everywhere. Thus, Prahlāda Maharaj advised his friends, the sons of the demons, to take this special path to take this path back home, back to Godhead, without difficulty. This is a great purport, huh? So wait, what are we reading now? We're reading, The struggle for material things is unworthy. The transient nature of material happiness. Raya kalatram pashavasutadayo griha mahi kunjara kosha bhutaya sarvirtha kama kshanabhangura yusha kurvanti martyasya kiyat priyam chala. One's riches, beautiful wife and female friends, one's sons and daughters, one's residence, one's domestic animals like cows, elephants, and horses, my domestic elephant, one's treasury, economic development, and sense gratification. Indeed, even the lifetime in which one can enjoy all these material opulences are certainly temporary and flickering. Since the opportunity of human life is temporary, what benefit can these material opulences give to a sensible man who has understood himself to be eternal? Purport. This verse describes how the advocates of economic development are frustrated by the laws of nature. As the previous verse asked, Kim Vishayo Papadhanai? What is the actual benefit of so-called economic development? The history of the world has factually proved that attempts to increase economic development for bodily comfort through the advancement of material civilization have done nothing to remedy the inevitability. Sorry, I have a hard time saying that word. Inevitability of birth, death, old age, and disease. Everyone has knowledge of huge empires throughout the history of the world: the Roman Empire, the Mughal Empire, the British Empire, and so on. But all these societies engaged in such economic development, sarveta kama. All the societies engaged in such economic development have been frustrated by the laws of nature through periodic wars, pestilence, famine, and so forth. What's pestilence? It is a fatal epidemic disease, especially bubonic plague. Okay. Thus, all their attempts have been flickering and temporary. In this verse, therefore, it is said, Kurvanti martyasya kiyat priyam chala. One may be very proud of possessing a vast empire, but such empires are impermanent. After 100 or 200 years, everything is finished. All such positions of economic development, although created with great endeavor and hardship, are vanquished very soon. Therefore, they have been described as chala. An intelligent man should conclude that material economic development is not at all pleasing. The entire world is described in Bhagavad-Gita as dukhalayam ashashvatam. Bhagavad-Gita 8:15. Miserable and temporary. Economic development may be pleasing for some time, but it cannot endure. Thus, many big businessmen are now very morose because they are being harassed by various plundering governments. In conclusion, why should one waste his time for so-called economic development, which is neither permanent nor pleasing to the soul? On the other hand, our relationship with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is eternal. Nityasiddha Krishna Prem. The pure souls are eternally in love with Krishna, and this permanent love, either as a servant, a friend, a parent, or a conjugal lover, is not at all difficult to revive. Especially in this age, the concession is that simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam, one revives his original relationship with God, and thus becomes so happy that he does not want anything material. As enunciated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam ba jagarisha kamaye. A very advanced devotee in Krishna consciousness does not want riches, followers, or possessions. Raya kalatram pashava sutadayo griha mahi kunjara kosha bhutaya. The satisfaction of possessing material opulences, although perhaps of a different standard, is available even in the lives of dogs and hogs who cannot revive their eternal relation with Krishna. In human life, however, our eternal dormant relationship with Krishna is possible to revive. Therefore, Prahlāda Maharaj has described this life as arthadam. Consequently, instead of wasting our time for economic development, which cannot give us any happiness, if we simply try to revive our eternal relationship with Krishna, we will properly utilize our lives. But according to some people, the idea that's becoming very prevalent now, there is no eternal dormant relationship with Krishna. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Okay. I guess dormant just means inside. I guess, wait 1 second. having physical functions. Yeah, dormant. Sorry guys, I'm getting distracted. Evam hilo kakratubi krita ami kshaishnava sati shaya nanirmala tasmad adrishta shutadushanam parang bhaktyoktaisham bhajatatma labdhaye. It is learned from Vedic literature that by performing great sacrifices, one may elevate himself to the heavenly planets. However, although life in the heavenly planets is hundreds and thousands of times more comfortable than life on Earth, the heavenly planets are not pure, nirmalam, are free from the taint of material existence. The heavenly planets are also temporary, and therefore they are not the goal of life. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, has never been seen or heard to possess inebriety. That's inebriety, drunkenness, especially habitual, intoxication. Consequently, for your own benefits and self-realization, you must worship the Lord with great devotion as described in the revealed scriptures. So I just want to see the Sanskrit, 1 second. I can't find the word inebriety. Anyways, whatever. Pure. Anyways, sorry guys. Okay. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad-Gita, Kshine Punye Martya Lokam Vishanti, Bhagavad-Gita 9:21. Even if one is promoted to the higher planetary systems by performing great sacrifices, which are accompanied by the... Whoa! That scared me. That was intense. Okay. Even if one is promoted to the higher planetary systems by performing great sacrifices, which are accompanied by the sinful act of sacrificing animals, the standard of happiness in Swargaloka is also not free of disturbances. There is a similar struggle for existence, even for the king of heaven, Indra. Thus, there is no practical benefit in promoting oneself to the heavenly planets. Indeed, from the heavenly planets, one must return to this earth after one has exhausted the results of his pious activities. In the Vedas it is said, Tad yate teha karma jito loka kshiyate eva mutra punya jito loka kshiyata. As the material positions we acquire here by hard work are vanquished in due course of time, one's residence in the heavenly planets is also eventually vanquished. According to one's activities of piety in different degrees, one obtains different standards of life, but none of them are permanent, and therefore they are all impure. Consequently, one should not endeavor to be promoted to the higher planetary systems, only to return to this earth, or descend still lower to the hellish planets. To stop this cycle of going up and coming down, one must take to Krishna consciousness. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore said, Pramanda Pramite kon bhagavana jeev, Guru Krishna prasade pai, bhakti lata bij. The living entity is rotating in the cycle of birth and death, going sometimes to the higher planets and sometimes to the lower planets. But that is not the solution to the problems of life. With the grace of Krishna, one is fortunate enough to meet a guru, a representative of Krishna. One gets the clue to returning home, back to Godhead, having achieved self-realization. This is what is actually desirable. Bhajatatma labdhaye. One must take to Krishna consciousness for self-realization. Yadartha iha karmani vedvan manya sakrin nara karotyato viparyasam amogham vindate phalam. A materialistic person, thinking himself very advanced in intelligence, continually acts for economic development. But again and again, as enunciated in the Vedas, he is frustrated by material activities, either in this life or in the next. Indeed, the results one obtains are inevitably the opposite of those one desires. Purport. No one has ever achieved the results he desires from material activities. On the contrary, Everyone has been frustrated again and again. Therefore, one must not waste his time in such material activities for sense pleasure, either in this life or in the next. So many nationalists, economists, and other ambitious persons have tried for happiness, individually or collectively, but history proves that they have all been frustrated. In recent history, we have seen many political leaders work hard for individual and collective economic development, but they have all failed. This is the law of nature, as clearly explained in the next verse. Sukhaya dukhamokshaya sankalpa iha karmina sadapnoti haya dukham anihaya sukhavritaha. In this material world, every materialist desires to achieve happiness and diminish his distress, and therefore he acts accordingly. Actually, however, one is happy as long as one does not endeavor for happiness. As soon as one begins his activities for happiness, his conditions of distress begin. Purport. Every conditioned soul is bound by the laws of material nature, as described in Bhagavad-Gita. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha. That's 327. Everyone has achieved a certain type of body given by material nature according to the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridesherjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities, who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Bhagavad-Gita 1861. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supersoul, is present in everyone's heart, and as the living entity desires, the Lord gives him facilities with which to work according to his ambitions in different grades of bodies. The body is just like an instrument by which the living entity moves according to false desires for happiness, and thus suffers the pangs of birth, death, old age, and disease in different standards of life. Everyone begins his activities with some plan and ambition, but actually, from the beginning of one's plan to the end, one does not derive any happiness. On the contrary, as soon as one begins acting according to his plan, his life of distress immediately begins. Therefore, one should not be ambitious to dissipate the unhappy conditions of life, for one cannot do anything about them. Ahankara vimuratma kartaham iti manyate. Bhagavad-Gita 327. Although one is acting according to false ambitions, he thinks he can improve his material conditions by his activities. The Vedas enjoin that one should not try to increase happiness or decrease distress. This is futile. Tasyaiva heto prayateta ko vida. One should work for self-realization, not for economic development, which is impossible to improve. Without endeavor, one can get the amount of happiness and distress for which he is destined, and one cannot change this. You can't change your karma. Therefore, what's in store for you, that's what I mean. Therefore, it is better to use one's time for advancement in the spiritual life of Krishna consciousness. One should not waste his valuable life as a human being. It is better to utilize this life for developing Krishna consciousness without ambitions for so-called happiness. Kaman kamayate kamyar yadartam iha purusha savai stuparakokyo bhanguro yatupaitica. A living entity desires comfort for his body and makes many plans for this purpose. But actually, the body is the property of others. Indeed, the perishable body embraces the living entity and then leaves him aside. Purport. Everyone desires comfort for his body and tries to make a suitable situation for this purpose, forgetting that the body is meant to be eaten by dogs, jackals, or moths, and thus turned into useless stool, ashes, or earth. The living entity wastes his time in a futile attempt to gain material possessions for the comfort of one body or another. Let me read that. The living entity wastes his time in a futile attempts to gain material possessions for the comfort of one body after another. Kim o vyavahita patya karagara dhana rajakosha gajamatya vrityapta mamataspadaha. Since the body itself is ultimately meant to become stool or earth, what is the meaning of the paraphernalia related to the body, such as wives, residences, wealth, children, relatives, servants, friends, kingdoms, treasuries, animals, and ministers? They are also temporary. What more can be said about this? Kim etar atmanas tuchai sahadehena nashvarai anartar artha sankashar nityananda rasodadhe. All this paraphernalia is very near and dear as long as the body exists. But as soon as the body is destroyed, all things related to the body are also finished. Therefore, actually one has nothing to do with them, but because of ignorance, one accepts them as valuable. Compared to the ocean of eternal happiness, they are most insignificant. What is the use of such insignificant relationships for the eternal living being? Purport. Krishna consciousness, devotional service to Krishna, is the ocean of eternal bliss. In a comparison to this eternal bliss, the so-called happiness of society, friendship, and love is simply useless and insignificant. One should therefore not be attached to temporary things. One should take to Krishna consciousness and become eternally happy. Nirupyatam iha svarta. Nirupyatam iha svarta kiyandeha brito sura nishikadishvavastasu klishyamanasya karmabhi. My dear friends, O sons of the Asuras, the living entity receives different types of bodies according to his previous fruit of activities. Thus he is seen to suffer with reference to his particular body in all conditions of life, beginning with his infusion into the womb. Please tell me, therefore, after full consideration, what is the living entity's actual interest in fruit of activities, which result in hardship and misery? Purport. Karmana daivanetrina jantur deho papattaye. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 3:31-1. The living entity receives a particular type of body according to his karma, or fruit of activities. The material pleasure in the material world from one's particular body is based on sexual pleasure. Yan maitunadi grihamedhi sukam hitucham. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 7:9-45. The entire world is working so hard only for sexual pleasure. To enjoy sexual pleasure and maintain the status quo of material life, one must work very hard, and because of such activities, one prepares himself another material body. Prahlāda Maharaj places this matter to his friends, the Asuras, for their consideration. Asuras generally cannot understand that the objects of sexual pleasure, the so-called pleasure of materialistic life, depend on extremely hard labor. Karmanyarabhate dehi dehinatmanuvartina karmabhistanute deham ubhayam tvavekataha. The living entity who has received his present body because of his past fruit of activity may end the results of his actions in this life. But this does not mean that he is liberated from bondage to material bodies. The living entity receives one type of body, and by performing actions with that body, he creates another. Thus he transmigrates from one body to another through repeated birth and death because of his gross ignorance. Purport. The living entity's evolution through different types of bodies is conducted automatically by the laws of nature in bodies other than those of human beings. In other words, by the laws of nature, prakrite kriyamanani, the living entity evolves from lower grades of life to the human form. Because of his developed consciousness, however, the human being must understand the composition of the living entity and understand why he must accept a material body. This chance is given to him by nature, but if he nonetheless acts like an animal, what is the benefit of his human life? In this life, one must select the goal of life and act accordingly. Having received instructions from the spiritual master and the Shastra, one must be sufficiently intelligent. In the human form of life, one should not remain foolish and ignorant, but must inquire about his constitutional position. This is called a tato brahmajigyasa. The human psychology gives rise to many questions, which various philosophers have considered and answered with various types of philosophy based upon mental concoction. This is not the way of liberation. The Vedic instructions say, Tadvigyanartam sagarum eva bigachet. This isn't in the book. Just that part is. To solve the problems of life, one must accept a spiritual master. Tasmar gurum prapadeta jigyasu shreya uttamam. That's Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 11:321. If one is actually serious about inquiring about the solution to material existence, one must approach a bona fide guru. Tad vidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. It's Bhagavad-Gita 4:34. One must approach a bona fide spiritual master by surrendering himself, pranipatena, and rendering service. An intelligent person must inquire from the spiritual master about the goal of life. A bona fide spiritual master can answer all such questions because he has seen the real truth. Even in our activities, we first consider gain and loss, and then we act. Similarly, an intelligent person must consider the entire process of material existence and then act intelligently, following the directions of the bona fide spiritual master. Tasmad artashtakāmascha dharmascha yad apashraya bhajata nihayatmanam aniham harimishvaram. The four principles of advancement in spiritual life, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, all depend on the disposition of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, my dear friends, follow in the footsteps of the devotees. Without desire, fully depend upon the disposition of the Supreme Lord, worship Him, the Supersoul, in devotional service. Purport. These are words of intelligence. Everyone should know that in every stage of life, we are dependent upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Dharma, religion, which we accept, should be that which is recommended by Prahlāda Maharaj, Bhagavad-Dharma. This is the instruction of Krishna, Sarva Dharma Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. To take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna means to act according to the rules and regulations of Bhagavad-Dharma, devotional service. As far as economic development is concerned, we should discharge our occupational duties, but fully depend on the lotus feet of the Lord for the results. Karmya nevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. According to one's position, one should perform his duties, but for the results, one depend upon Krishna. Narottam Das Thakur sings that our only desire should be to perform the duties of Krishna consciousness. We should not be misled by the karma mimamsa philosophy, which concludes that if we work seriously, the results will come automatically. This is not a fact. The ultimate results depends upon the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In devotional service, therefore, the devotee completely depends upon the Lord and honestly performs his occupational duties. Therefore, Prahlāda Maharaj advised his friends to depend completely on Krishna and worship him in devotional service. Sarvesham api bhutanam harir atmeshwara priya bhutar mahadbhi swakritai kritanam jiva samgita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the soul and the supersoul of all living entities. Every living entity is a manifestation of his energy in terms of the living soul and the material body. Therefore, the Lord is the most dear, and he is the supreme controller. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is manifested by his different energies, the material energy, the spiritual energy, and the marginal energy. He is the original source of all living entities in the material world, and he is situated in everyone's heart as the supersoul. Although the living entity is the cause of his various types of bodies, the body is given by material nature according to the order of the Lord. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridesher junatishthati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities, who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Bhagavad-Gita 18:61. The body is just like a machine, a car, in which the living entity is given a chance to sit and move according to his desire. The Lord is the original cause of the material body and the soul, which is expanded by his marginal energy. The Supreme Lord is the dearmost object of all living entities. Prahlāda Maharaj therefore advised his class friends, the sons of the demons, to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead again. Devo suro manushyo va yaksho gandharva eva va bhajan mukunda charanam swastiman syad yatavayam. If a demigod, demon, human being, yaksha, gandharva, or anyone within this universe renders service to the lotus of Mukunda, who can deliver salvation, he is exactly situated in the most auspicious condition of life, exactly like us, the Mahajans, headed by Prahlāda Maharaj. Purport. Prahlāda Maharaj, by his living example, requested his friends to engage in devotional service. Whether in demigod society, asura society, human society, or Gandharva society, every living entity should take shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, and thus become perfect in good fortune. Nalandri jatamit devatvam rishitvam basuratmaja prinanaya mukundasya navritim na bahugyata na danang na tapunijya na shochang na vratani cha priyate malaya bhaktya anyad vidambanam. My dear friends, O sons of the demons, you cannot please the Supreme Personality of Godhead by becoming perfect Brahmins, demigods, or great saints, or by becoming perfectly good in etiquette or vast learning. None of these qualifications can awaken the pleasure of the Lord. Nor by charity, austerity, sacrifice, cleanliness, or vows can one satisfy the Lord. The Lord is pleased only if one has unflinching, unalloyed devotion to him. Without sincere devotional service, everything is simply a show. Wow, this is an important verse. Purport. Prahlāda Maharaj concludes that one can become perfect by serving Lord sincerely by all means. Material elevation to life as a Brahmin, demigod, rishi, and so on are not causes for developing love of Godhead. But if one sincerely engages in the service of the Lord, his Krishna consciousness is complete. This is confirmed in Bhagavad-Gita 9:30. Api chet suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hisa. Even if one commits the most abominable actions, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated. To develop unalloyed love for Krishna is the perfection of life. Other processes may be helpful, but if one does not develop his love for Krishna, these other processes are simply a waste of time. Dharma svanushtita pungsam vishvaksena katasuya notpada ded yati ratim shrama eva hi kevalam. Duties, dharma, executed by men, regardless of occupation, are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the Supreme Lord. At Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 128. The test of perfection is one's unalloyed devotion to the Lord. Tato haro bhagavati bhaktim kurutu danava atmopamyena sarvatra sarvabhutatmanishvare. My dear friends, O sons of the demons, in the same favorable way that one sees himself and takes care of himself, take to devotional service to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present everywhere as the supersoul of all living entities. Purport. The word atmopamyena refers to thinking others to be like oneself. One can very intelligently conclude that without devotional service, without becoming Krishna conscious, one cannot be happy. Therefore, the duty of all devotees is to preach Krishna consciousness everywhere, all over the world, because all living entities without Krishna consciousness are suffering the pangs of material existence. To preach Krishna consciousness is the best welfare activity. Indeed, it is described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as para upakar, work for the true benefit of others. The activities of para upakar have been especially entrusted to those who have taken birth in India as human beings. Bharata bhumite hoila manusha janmajar, janma sartak kori koro para upakar. The entire world is suffering for want of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised all human beings born in India to make their lives perfect by Krishna consciousness and then preach the gospel of Krishna consciousness all over the world so that others may become happy by executing the principles of Krishna consciousness. Daiteya yaksharakshang striya shudra vrajokasa kaga mrigha papa jiva santihya chuttatangataha. O my friends, O sons of demons, everyone, including you, the yakshas and rakshasas, the unintelligent women, the shudras and cowherd men, the birds, the lower animals, and the sinful living entities, can revive his original, eternal, spiritual life and exist forever simply by accepting the principles of bhakti yoga. Purport. The devotees are referred to as Achyuta Gotra, or the dynasty of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is called Achyuta, as indicated in Bhagavad-Gita, Senayor Upayor Madhe Ratam Stapaya Me Chuta. The Lord is infallible in the material world because he is the supreme spiritual person. Similarly, the jivas, who are part and parcel of the Lord, can also become infallible. Although Prahlāda's mother was in the conditional state and was the wife of a demon, even yakshas, rakshasas, women, shudras, and even birds and other lower living entities can be elevated to Achyuta Gotra, the family of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the highest perfection. As Krishna never falls, when we revive our spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, we never fall again to material existence. One should understand the position of the Supreme Achyuta, Krishna, who says in Bhagavad-Gita 4.9, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvata takta deham punar janma naitimam eti sorajuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Understand Achyuta, the Supreme Infallible, and how we are related with him, and one should take to the service of the Lord. This is the perfection of life. Srila Madhvacharya says, Achyutatam Chutivarjanam. The word Achyutatam refers to one who never falls to this material world, but always remains in the Vaikuntha world, fully engaged in the service of the Lord. Okay, last verse. We didn't go way over time, huh? Etavan evalokesmin pungsa swarta parap smrita ekanta bhaktir govinde yat sarvatra tarikshanam. In this material world, to render service to the lotus feet of Govinda, the cause of all causes, and to see him everywhere, is the only goal of life. This much alone is the ultimate goal of human life, as explained by all the revealed scriptures. Purport. In verse, the words Sarvatra Tad Ikshanam describes the highest perfection of devotional service, in which one sees everything with reference to Govinda's activities. The highly elevated devotee never sees anything unrelated to Govinda. Stavara Jangama Dheke na Dheke Tar Murti Sarvatra Hoy Nija Ishta Devaspurti. The Mahabhagavat, the advanced devotee, certainly sees everything mobile and immobile, but he does not actually see their forms. Rather, everywhere he immediately sees manifest the form of the Supreme Lord. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 8, 274. Even in this material world, a devotee does not see materially manifested things. Instead, he sees Govinda in everything. When he sees a tree or a human being, a devotee sees them in relation to Govindam Adipurusham. Govinda is the original source of everything. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He is an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. Brahma Samhita 5.1. The test of a perfect devotee is that he sees Govinda everywhere in this universe, even in every atomic particle. Andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam. This is the perfect vision of a devotee. It is therefore said, Narayanam ayam dhira pashyanti paramartina jagar dhanan mayam lubdha ka mukha kamani mayam. A devotee sees everyone and everything in relationship with Narayan. Narayanam ayam is an expansion of Narayan's energy. Just as those who are greedy to see everything as a source of money-making, and those who are lusty see everything as being conducive to sex, the most perfect devotee, Prahlāda Maharaj, saw Narayan even within a stone column. This does not mean, however, that we must accept the words of Daridra Narayan, which have been manufactured by some unscrupulous person. One who actually envisions Narayan everywhere makes no distinction between the poor and the rich. To single out the Daridra Narayans, or poor Narayan, and reject the Dhani Narayan, or rich Narayan, is not the vision of a devotee. Rather, that is the imperfect vision of materialistic persons. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purports of the 7th canto, 7th chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled, What Prahlāda Learned in the Womb. Cool. We read all that, 7,000 words, and we're only 5 minutes overtime. I was thinking we were going to be a lot. All right, so tomorrow we will begin chapter 8. Lord Nrsimhadev slays the king of the demons. We end our Kartik with Nrsimhadev's appearance. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitila Pravishta Maha-Bhagavat Srila Gorkshadas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nitila Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Did I skip somebody? I spaced out for a little while. Let me just start over. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashatashmad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashatashmad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitila Pravishta Maha-Bhagavat Srila Gorkshadas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nitila Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath Shara Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai Namachay Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Vrajamandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sarva Abhishya Bharati Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Radha Kund Shyama Kund Ki Jai Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Nishinga Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakta Pravar Shri Prahlāda Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Harinam Shri Kartik Palankari Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashatashmad Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Tadiya Shubha Tirobhav Titi Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo Vindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams, dear devotees. Just looking at these comments. There's something that jumps out at me about the Sanskrit of the last verse. Let me just see. Etavan eva lokesmin pungsa swarta parasmrita ekanta bhaktir govinde ya sarvatra tarikshanam. The word govinde, let's see. Usually in these verses, in these cantos, when the English purport talk about Krishna and Govinda, the Sanskrit actually says Hari or Vasudeva or Narayan. Oh, I didn't even notice that. That is really cool. But Prahlāda actually uses the name Govinda. And earlier he mentioned, I was thinking Krishna name. Nice. Yes. Nice point, Rupanjali. Very nice points. All right. Dandavat pranams, everybody. Yes, I am going to New Braj. Kishore, will you be in New Braj? Where are you living now? Are you in Fresno? Or anyways, I'll message you personally. All right, everybody. Dandavat pranams. Haribol Champak Didi. Haribol. Dandavat pranams, everybody. Rup Manjari. I'm not going to say everybody's names because there's so many people. Prajumna Prabhu, Pramila Mataji, Indira Mataji, Raseshwari Mataji, Madhavi Didi, Gargaraji, Ganga Didi, everybody. Dandavat pranam. Sorry if I missed somebody out. Hare Krishna.